Welcome to another edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up. During this program, we will highlight the agenda items presented to the Lakeville City Council at their October 3rd, 2016 meeting. First highlighted item on the agenda is item number 5, Public Works Quarterly Report. And to provide the background information on this agenda item is Public Works Director Chris Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My pleasure to be here with you this evening presenting our third quarter report for 2016 for the Public Works Department. I'll jump right into some project updates. I know the council receives updates monthly at our work sessions and even weekly, but I do want to highlight a few of our key projects around the city. First, construction work along Dodd Boulevard or County Road 9 from 185th Street to 194th Street is substantially complete. Some of the final restoration work is still ongoing, as well as the completion of the work in King Park on the water reuse project that's going to be irrigating some of the baseball fields there is still being completed. However, all lanes of traffic did open, so ignore these photos. Those were taken earlier last week. All lanes of traffic did open, as well as the traffic signal is operational as of Friday, last Friday, September 30th. Our 2015 street reconstruction project update, if you recall, that is a project that was phased over 2015 and 2016, 2 contractors, 2 phases each year. All of the areas now do have their first layer of asphalt, so everything's been paved, all the utilities are in, and as you can see by the photos here, this happens to be on Griffin Trail. The restoration work is underway. Final wear course paving has begun in phase 1, the work that was done last year, and it'll continue, and our goal is to have everything with the final layer of pavement yet this year, weather permitting, of course. Our 2016 street reconstruction project, you see a lot of photos here. I'll start by talking about the South Fork area because that's one of the more visible areas as you drive up and down the County Road 50 corridor. In the commercial area, curb and gutter was installed along Juniper Path about a week ago, and actually today along Kenrick Avenue right off of County Road 50, the curb and gutter was being installed. We expect that to cure over the course of the week, and hopefully we'll be able to be paving, weather permitting. We do have some rain in the forecast later in the week. Other parts of the project are continuing along. We are doing a lift station replacement on Orchard Trail. That begins this week, and then that segment will be completed along with the other segments within the project. One thing to note is starting today, some of the final lifts of pavement were going on east of the 50-60 roundabout in those neighborhoods that are north and south of County Road 60 that were reconstructed. 172nd Street and that realignment project, traffic was shifted to the new alignment on last Friday as well, so Friday was a busy day. Work is nearing completion on the other aspects of the project. Now what will occur over the next couple of weeks is the connection to the commercial businesses along right off of 172nd and along the Kenyon Avenue area. So that will be completed by late October, that project in its entirety. Shifting to some of our utility projects, our Holyoke Avenue Water Tower just north of City Hall here. Utility work continues. Of course, the wet weather was very difficult to complete some of that work. Some of the site grading and restoration is going on, and the remaining painting of the tank is taking place. You can see that in the photo on the left side. We expect that we'll be filling the tank and doing some of the preliminary testing by early November. Tying back into the County Road 50 project that will start next year and continue into 2018. Folks, I'm sure, have seen some of the work that's gone along, that's went on along the corridor, and that's some of the home demolitions and commercial business demolitions and restoration work that was completed actually late last week. So we've wrapped up that phase. I would like to note, not necessarily tied to this project, but there are a few other demolitions going on in the city that folks might notice over the course of the next week. One is a fire damaged home off of 178th Street. That demolition actually took place today. Another home is adjacent to Antlers Park and some property that the city acquired earlier this year. That home demolition right on the corner of 202nd and Ipava, the northwest corner, that will take place midweek, weather permitting. And the old, formerly Scheffler property at the southeast corner of Dodd and County Road 50, that demolition will take place early part of next week. So now looking at some of our facility projects, just wanted to highlight one of the smaller ones that was a replacement of a roof on well number 4. The last time that roof was replaced was in 1995. You can see one of the interesting things and why we wanted to include this slide. You can see some of the work occurring in the right-hand picture that is actually framing in for a skylight, which maybe many folks don't know. All of the well houses have large skylights or openings in their roofs, and that is so you can pull the pump and motor out of the well when it needs to be rehabilitated, which we do on an 8 to 10 year cycle. The big facilities project is here at City Hall in our west wing. One of the big issues in our west wing, we had some floor settling, so our contractor was in earlier in September and injected a resin and foam polyfill into the floor, raising the slab back up. You can see the upper left-hand photo, how much the slab in fact settled, and you can see the results in the right-hand side photo. Along with that, everything in the west wing is being painted. There's new carpet and other things being installed. One of those items is a transaction window that began, the work on that began this week for the finance offices, so that there is a transaction window for folks when they come to pay their utility bills to make it more convenient so that we can provide that customer service. Another facility update, our Heritage Center, earlier in the year, earlier in the quarter I should say, we replaced 3 rooftop units at the Heritage Center that had been in operation since 1994. One, in fact, had not been operational since the fall of 2015. So the units were lifted onto the roof, as you can see in these photos, placed into service by later that same day. Wanted to talk a little bit about some of our maintenance staff. As I think the council's aware, as I've highlighted in some of my weekly updates, or the city administrator has, we've had an unusually high number of water main breaks in the third quarter. We've actually had 9 water main breaks. Typically we reserve those sorts of numbers for the winter time. Unfortunately, we've seen a number of those this year, some related to some of the work going on in some of our street recon projects, others just completely unrelated. Some are very minor, and then you can see some are more major repairs. In all instances, our utilities division does place a very high priority on water main breaks, and in most instances, we're able to get the water back on in a matter of hours. Forestry, for some that may not know, we did have a part-time city forester that started in August, so I'd encourage anybody to visit our city website and find out more information about that. They can reach out to our city forester if they have any forestry questions. But just as a follow-up, since our city forester started in August, she's dealt with over 50 contacts with residents on tree concerns and other things, performed over 30 tree inspections throughout the city on both public and private property. And in one of the future slides, I'll highlight one of the projects that our streets division was involved in with some tree removals in the downtown area. Pollinator Garden, I definitely don't want to take anything away from the Parks Department, and I know Mr. Hennon had highlighted this before, but this information was provided by our Environmental Resources Department, or Division, and I think it's really important to note some of the partnerships there. Majority of the work was completed, of course, with prairie restorations, preparing the soil, and then seeding and blanketing the area. The fence was installed, of course. And then the Pollinator Garden was planted by a group of 4th graders, as well as our Lakeville Rotary. Funding, it's important to note funding, and I know Mr. Hennon again had mentioned this before, but funding came from the Lakeville Rotary as well as the Vermilion River JPO and the city. An update, as you can see in some of the photos, flowers and the grasses are growing well, and the remaining work to be completed is just some signage, installation of insect hotels, and the removal of the snow fencing. So that's coming along well, and our environmental resources staff is pleased with the progress on that project. Now tying back to our city forester and some of the tree removals, This occurred last week, and our Streets Division removed several ash trees along Holt Avenue between Upper 206th and 208th Street. Inspection of these ash trees showed that they were diseased and dying and posed a danger to the public. If you look closely at some of the slides, you can see many of the branches are dead. They were falling on vehicles, falling in the roadway, falling on sidewalks. So it was necessary to remove the trees before they became more of a hazard than they already were. So inspection of the tree limbs by our city forester revealed the presence of many invasive pests and insects that affect ash trees. However, it was not the emerald ash borer, so I just want to make sure to let everybody know that. Now having a city forester on staff, some of the inspections that she has been performing have been specifically related to residents' concerns with the emerald ash borer, so that's been an added value that she's brought. So our streets crews did the work. They closed off sections of the street, needed to complete the work, and we're finished with everything in just a few hours. Outfall maintenance, this ties back into all the rainfall that we've had this summer, and it relates, of course, to some of our stormwater and stormwater runoff. In most circumstances, our outfall maintenance, is to repair the pipes or to clear sediment or vegetation that's blocking them. Most of the work throughout the city is performed in the rear property lines of residential homes where stormwater flows into a stream, creek, wetland. Residents grant the city permission to enter those easements and enter their properties to go back and work on these outfalls. It's important, and one of the reasons besides our crews doing the work that I wanted to highlight is something that the council supported us acquiring a few years ago, and those are the turf protection mats that you see pictured in the left-hand slide. These have proven to be a great tool, really reducing the impacts. You can see a home right there on people's property to access these outfalls and rear yards where we have issues. You can see if you look really hard in the photo, there's a 1-ton dump truck way in the back as well as the mini excavator that you see. And usually when we would perform this work, we would have to either wait until winter conditions so the ground was frozen, which would make access even much more difficult, or we would just do significant damage that would result in a lot of restoration costs. So definitely a nice added piece of equipment that's been added into our repertoire. So last few slides deal with water use year to date. As you can see, year to date water use is just above actually 2 billion gallons, or right at 2 billion gallons for the year. This is about a 2.5% increase over the 10-year average, which is somewhat surprising considering the wet year that we've had. But then when you look at monthly water use, and specifically you look at the last quarter and how wet it's been from July through September, you can see that it's been drastically impacted month over month by our wet weather. When we look at the same thing per capita or per person water use, you see the same type of results. Again, also indicative of the wet weather and reduced irrigation use. And then lastly, our water use average over peak days. You can see we had a little spike, the red line showing kind of the peak water use days, where the blue line is our averages. And what we see is those two lines coming closer together as we typically see at this time of the year when irrigation use has been reduced. And that completes the quarterly report, which it's a little longer than my monthly one, so I apologize, but completes the report for the third quarter for the Public Works Department. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Next highlighted item on the agenda was item number 7, public hearing on the certification of delinquent utility accounts. And to provide the background information on this agenda item is Assistant Finance Director Julie Werner.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight is the annual process to certify delinquent utility accounts to the property taxes for the year 2017. In addition to certifying the amount delinquent, the city also collects a $35 service charge to cover the cost of certification and an interest rate at the rate of 18%. In 2016, there's 739 accounts compared to 753 as of last year.
Item number 7 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda was item number 8, Kenwood Place. And to provide the information regarding this agenda item is Community and Economic Development Director Dave Olson.
Mayor, members of the council, I'll be brief on this as well, as council has seen this previously. There's one additional action that was pointed out in your council memo, and I'll point out in my presentation, and I'll get Jim to set the... This is the final plat, and most of the time these items end up on consent agenda, but the reason for the fact that we're on the regular agenda tonight is because the council is also approving a easement vacation, right-of-way vacation, in conjunction with this. And just for everybody's, and maybe for the people viewing at home, the area in question is out here in the adjacent to County Road 5, Kenwood Trail, and 172nd Street, just west of I-35. It's a total of 27 acres. The council on August 1st approved a preliminary plat, and Mr. Jarvis is correct in that the final plat is identical to the preliminary plat. This shows the 30 townhome lots that are being platted on the area that council approved with the preliminary plat to be rezoned to PUD, also approved a comp plan amendment, which has since been approved by the Metropolitan Council. Shows the new alignment of Kenyon Avenue, 172nd Street. If you've been out there, that alignment is in and paved. There's a temporary connection to the cul-de-sac for Kenyon Avenue where the existing commercial businesses are through the TCF property, but I believe, Chris, we're on schedule to complete this project later this month. And the other, what's also included in the plat, and we don't have plans yet for, are the 2 commercial lots that will be remaining and that are being created by this plat as adjacent to County Road 5. The other action, before I get into a little bit more of a detail, but the other action before tonight, and this was a very involved property. There were numerous parcels that had to be assembled and acquired. And there were there's actually 3 property owners on the plat, besides Mr. Jarvis and his group. The Highland Bank group, represented by John Wall, owns some of the commercial lots that are being created. And then the city of Lakeville has property in this development as well, that most of which was conveyed to us by the developer in advance of the street project. But what we're doing, and mainly this is a housekeeping item, and we're upside down with the map for some reason, but I'll see if I can look at it upside down as well. There's a strip of road right-of-way that's being vacated adjacent to County Road 5. It will be included in and part of the new plat. The same with an area of right-of-way along Klamath. The area right in here, which is a drainage way wetland area that goes through the 2 commercial parcels, was previously in a kind of a blanket drainage and utility easement. It's since, and with the final plat for Kenwood Place, is being platted as an outlot and conveyed to the city. So the city will retain that. These are being platted as part of the final plat. The only vacation that's actually going back to a property owner is this north half of 172nd Street. Because of the realignment, this is no longer needed, and this will be attached to the southernmost of the 2 commercial lots that are being created. Mr. Jarvis has provided the city with a landscape plan. That's probably a better indication of how the landscaping is going to work on this development. A couple questions were asked during the preliminary plat discussion by one of the council members. Quite honestly, this subdivision has a lot of similarities to the Rock Island Townhome development just to the west. Rock Island Townhome unit had 32 units with a 930-foot private cul-de-sac, which exceeded the city standards too, but was approved through a PUD process similar to this. This development has 30 units and has an 800-foot cul-de-sac that's being created. And it was a real challenge for everyone to come up with a development plan that basically preserved all the wetlands that are going to be behind this unit, preserved the existing wetlands. The only encroachments were a couple places where the street had to cross a wetland, but the developer has preserved 95 to 98% of the wetlands out here. The other plan shows as to how the landscaping will be done around the individual units of the townhome. Again, the final plat is consistent with the preliminary plat that was approved by the council on August 1st. The Met Council has approved the land use plan amendment that was done for this. The developer has signed the development contract, and it was included in your packet. So the two actions needed by the council, one of which is to approve the final plat, and the second one is a resolution approving the vacation of street right-of-way and public street and drainage easement in conjunction with that, with this development. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Item number 8 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Well, those were the highlighted items presented to the council at their October 3rd, 2016 meeting. If you have any questions or comments regarding these agenda items, please feel free to call City Hall. The number is 952-985-4400. Thanks for watching this edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up.